I don't know if it started. I'm on my phone real quick just trying to see. It says it's waiting for me. I also don't know if it's going to sound right. Hello, hi. It started, but it's not playing. I've done something wrong. Man, learning pains are. Oh, there I am. Yay! Okay. Hello, my name is Wakasa, and I'm a constant stream of consciousness. And today we will be discussing Pluto and exploring the monetary gains through taboos. Of course, there's a trigger warning for bastardizations of intimacy. I say that all the time, and I don't think I've ever really explained what that means. I'm pretty much talking about things that are too close for comfort or like genuine like harm being done to you because someone took advantage of your privacy, of your vulnerability, your intimacies. Bastardizations. Yes. Oh, wait, I have to go find the PowerPoint so that I can look through. So I can't see myself. So, oh, and then I guess I can't also monitor the chat through here. Okay. So before we start, I just wanted to show some of the correspondence with the planet Pluto. So it rules over the astrological sign Scorpio. I'm really, really hoping that it sounds good. Oh my God, I'm a bit paranoid. It rules over the astrological sign Scorpio, and Scorpio is the sign associated with death and rebirth. But also, I think, well, I should have probably double checked the app that I've learned a lot of astrology from. It's called this thing called Time Passage. Time Passage. And this is alive. I guess I get to do that. It has a section called Learn, and then it shows you planetary bodies, the 12 houses, and all that good stuff. And I think it it says on the lighter side. Oh, on the lighter side. So I guess I'm just going to ignore the first paragraph, the first two paragraphs. Pluto is associated with renewal and rebirth. So Pluto is also a planet of renewal and rebirth. I think I've heard the phrase transformation, but that might also be tied to Uranus. But I have another video planned to like connect all the dots. I need to do another chart where I had all the strings. I need to do that. But it's also connected in the astrological body with the reproductive organs. It is both the male and female reproductive organs, but I do think most depictions show a male body because, oh, Scorpio is the scorpion, because the tail of a scorpion sort of mimics the appendage of a man. And then because it's connected to death and rebirth, and death and rebirth, but no, death and private parts, it also has connections to intimacy, such as sex. And I do think that's why the stereotype of Scorpios being so sexy follows them around because of these associations, and also because I think a lot of people there's like a feeling of fear, but it's not directly fear, but like goth people, you know how like they just have like a mystique about them, and you're like drawn to them, but you're also scared of them, and it just comes off as really sexy. So like intimacy. And then Scorpio rules the eighth house. So Pluto is connected to the eighth house, and the eighth house has to do with death. It has to do with intimacy, but then it also has to do with other people's possession, which is interesting because it's your chart, but I'll explain that later. And then Pluto is the Roman god of the dead. There's a distinction, the dead, and it's Greek, and his Greek equivalent is Hades, who is the god of the dead. Also, I wanted to show you these tarot cards. So the Death Tarot card, it's number 13, and that's why there are a lot of superstitions about the number 13, but it has a lot of connections to death, and that is directly associated with Scorpio. Oh, wait, I have my mouse. And then the Judgment card is directly associated with Pluto. And I like to think of how, like, well, these are people coming out of their grave or caskets. So there's still a connection to death, but I do think like judgment is final, like death is also final. So like a final judgment, a final death, also Judgment Day having to do with death. So the inspiration for this video was actually a video by a YouTuber, streamer, content creator. He's on Nebula, called Foreign Man or Foreign Fridays. And he made a video. Ooh, I actually forgot what it was called. The most dangerous predator on YouTube. I have it linked down below. It's probably going to be under Foreign Man something, and then I have it linked below. And he was talking about how this man is profiting over voyeurism. Actually, I was supposed to rewatch it so I could take notes for later because I'm going to go on Twitch and discuss things that I picked up, like language around what people are saying. But I was like, this is actually not any different than how we consume content in the modern day. Like everything is voyeurism. We have an attention economy. Oh, I put this right here because there's like a phrase about like, oh, it's like watching a train crash. You can't peel your eyes away from it. And it's disturbing and it's like, it's destructive and it's painful, but it's like, I have to see this through. We love seeing drama. We love scandals. We love gossip. And we love watching disturbing things. We like seeing it from afar. We don't like it in our own life. I would say Wendy Williams, I grew up on Wendy Williams, and she built a whole media empire talking about people's lives, talking about people's scandals. And then also George R. R. Martin, but it's really any author because authors tend to be really weird. Authors have very disturbing spirits, but they synthesize it or convert it into media that we consume. But I specifically say George R. R. Martin because literally, like, he cannot write a story without incest being involved. It's actually very, this is what I mean, bastardizations of intimacy. When we talk about intimacy, we often think about sex. Sex is the most prominent version of intimacy that we depict in our media, but intimacy can be holding hands. Intimacy can be a hug. Intimacy can be between lovers, of course. It can be between friends that are not sleeping with each other. It can be between family members. And the reason why I directly say bastardizations of intimacy is because I often find that some people will perceive a very nice and pure, clean, intimate moment, and because it's intimate, they register it's intimate, they will automatically sexualize it. And I don't know, I'm just like, oh yeah, George R. R. Martin, like plot wise, I was following it, of course, but I was pissed when Jon Snow ended up with his auntie. That's his auntie, right? And in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, I believe in generational curses. So I was like, okay, so it wasn't just in general, like we like watching nasty, dark, twisted, disgusting things. So we just had like a voyeuristic attention economy, a voyeuristic consumption of content. Okay, so the first, let me just check. Uh, you should totally comment, or what is it, a chat? So, okay, the first thing that I wanted to show was this concept. The first taboo that I want to talk about is physical violence, and specifically physical violence, like beating up on someone, but also like actual like murder. Organized crime tends to like take people out, but and also war. Okay, so I'm trying to find it. Physical violence. We like watching people fight. Baddies USA is really big right now because people like to watch fights. We also like to watch boxing. There have been underground fighting clubs. I also wanted to bring up organized crime because I think of the concept of hired mercenaries and how there is an underground black market or like black market, probably that's the right phrase, where someone is making a lot of money because they have an asset, they have a skill to take someone out without being caught. And that can be very valuable, that can be very profitable if you know how to do it right. Then I also wanted to bring up the concept of war because Scorpio, yes, is ruled by Pluto, but back in the days, it used to be ruled by Mars, and Mars is the planet of war. And how war does tend to fuel an economy. Wartime economy is a very profitable economy. And then I also wanted to just put pornography right here because there is what do you call it? A genre. I don't know if it's still called that, but it's like gore. There is a genre called this, the first part, that I don't know if it makes money, but it is a taboo and it is very disturbing. And you have to, look different nooks and crannies to go find it, but people do find it. And because I'm bringing up pornography, I want to talk about one and only fan. Sex, scandals, prostitution. I also put baddies here again because there is a rumor that they are human trafficking those girls, and also the concept of a humiliation ritual. And the thing about humiliation rituals makes me think of like the humiliation kink, like BDSM, and how BDSM is like relatively like some really intense sexual practices, and often like it can harbor very dangerous people in their community if they do not actually abide by the rules of getting consent, maintaining consent, communication. And I would even see like, um, and I might get into it in another thing, but the concept of like CNC, of course, the first C means that it's consensual. Like I understand it, but it's like, oh, this is very disturbing. But there is a community of people who are into that and they make it work and they thrive. And the best key thing that you can have is communication. But I do want to go back to the concept of like a sex tape. A sex tape used to be something that people would like launch careers over, and it used to be very successful. Not very successful. We have two. I personally think there's only two people who actually like, but that's the thing. They were already rich. They were able to multiply their family wealth, their wealth through their scandal. And not everyone can do that. And that's why I think of like the concept of OnlyFans, how it feels like everyone thinks that, oh, OnlyFans is an easy way to get money. And that is true. But there is, I think I might have taken it away. Oopsies. I wanted to bring up the fact that, no, I have it somewhere else. The fact that after, not everyone is going to make a lot of money, and you can only get the attention for so much, and then it has to be a novelty, and there's a level of oversaturation that happens when someone, the first person does a taboo, and of course everyone's up in roars, right? But then there's a tension there, so then other people are trying to leech off the attention, but now the attention is getting divided all over again. So right now I'm like, OnlyFans is not a viable place to get money anymore. When it was first a taboo, when it was first coming up, of course, like if you could harness someone's agitation about sex scandals, or like, and this is something that I do think about, where it's just like sex is not inherently dirty. The expression of body is not inherently dirty, but like we come from a puritanical, a purity culture. So often, if you can just figure out a way to agitate the public, you can make money off of that. A new taboo that I'm seeing, but I'm telling you, T minus 2 years, it's about to be oversaturated. I think a lot of people think that they can get into drug dealing and or like drug smuggling, and there's it's starting to ramp up in pop culture. You're starting to see kids joke about it. So it's like almost it's only a matter of time where it's like, oh, everyone is a drug dealer, so no one's actually making money. And drugs is another taboo. So anyways, because I'm talking about sex, I wanted to bring up this phrase called little death. So little death, it's like a French phrase, but I don't speak French, so I wasn't going to put that one on here. But I thought it meant an orgasm. They're saying that it's actually post-nut clarity. Either way, it's connecting the concept of death to sex. And now I want to talk about intimacy. There are a lot of things that are intimate, but main motifs or main symbols that I'm like, oh, intimacy, sex, of course, blood, hair, and funerals. No, there was another one. I guess I didn't write it down. And this is where I wanted to talk about, is it dirty or is it too intimate? Because I'm always talking about the concept of bastardizations of intimacy. My mom just got home. Bastardizations of intimacy. Sometimes, okay, this is the best example that I can bring up. Hair, right? I put hair here specifically because I wanted to discuss the concept of, is it dirty or is it too intimate? I remember in elementary school or middle school, someone would like be playing with their hair and maybe a strand would like shed off and then it would touch someone and the person would freak out. They're like, oh, this is dirty, which sort of kind of insinuates that that person is dirty, but they're not dirty. Their hair is not dirty. They take a shower every day. They're not dirty. What you're feeling is a breach of intimacy or a breach of boundary. Like that's too close. You're touching a part of their body that you had you didn't actively want to touch their body. You didn't consent to interacting with that body part, their hair. So it feels like a violation. So it's too close. It's too intimate. That's why you don't just touch random people's hair. And that's part of the reason why when people are like, oh, I don't really get why they get upset about touching hair. But I grew up in a PWI and people would freak out if a hair strand would touch them because it has to do with intimacy. And if you're a stranger, I don't know you, you're actually breaching. That is a form of assault. You are breaching my safety, what do you call it? Not safety. I'll find it. Personal space. And I would even say the same thing goes for blood. Now, I know that like blood-borne pathogens, so like blood is more likely to be dirty. But in the case of blood, like for the most part, I don't think people's blood is actually that dirty. But when you see blood, it does tend to be a very intimate situation, whether it's because they're injured or whether it's because it's like a medical situation. So it's like about their health, and health does tend to be very intimate, very private, very like we have HIPAA laws. You're not supposed to be putting people's business out there. So like blood is also intimate, and it that I don't know where that essay is. It might be on my old laptop. It might be on my Wattpad. I just know I never published it. But that's actually why I think like Christians and Catholics, when they drink the blood of Jesus, that is genuinely a very intimate ritual that they will continue to do, because blood is a symbol of self, blood, sharing blood. And I've talked about the concept because it has connections to like procreation, and sex does tend to be a procreative thing. When you mix blood inside a child, because it has your blood and then your partner's blood, blood is a very intimate symbol. So you just don't want to be touching anybody's blood because you don't know them like that. And then also because it can be a blood-borne pathogen. And that's what I think about when it comes to intimacy. And then there's this movie called Together that I haven't watched because I don't like horror movies, but I am going to watch it because every time I talk about this, like that, the trailers that I saw, I was like, this is genuinely how I feel like when I think of forms of bastardizations of intimacy, like a sexual assault, like incest, like there's another one that I'm like, oh, that's not normal. Your expression of love, your expression of passion is genuinely breaching like social mores and someone's safety. That's how I feel about this movie, and I need to watch it. Okay, so next thing that I wanted to talk about is Sagittarius. Stay with me. Sagittarius is not ruled by Pluto or Mars or any of that. The reason why I bring that up is because I made a video a long time ago. It's on my TikTok, but it's also here on YouTube, where I said, oh, Sagittarius is the astrological surgeon, and that is not true. My cousin actually corrected me and said surgery is actually more connected to Osiris. I was going to change this to the pyramids. Sure, okay. Osiris, because he got chopped. Well, no, it's Pluto in general, but Pluto, the Roman god, he's associated with Osiris, the Egyptian god, and he got chopped up. So that's pretty much like surgery. And when I think of surgery, I think of like the concept of how I think of how surgery is a trauma on the body, but it is a healing trauma. And I'll get into it later because Pluto and Scorpio have a lot of connections to just harm, inflicting of harm. I literally said bastardization of intimacy. And I do think when you are too intimate, or I don't like it, but when you also neglect some levels of intimacy, or like neglect some levels of like pro-social behavior, I'm taking notes for another video, so I'm learning new words. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a bastardization of intimacy. That's so antisocial. That's not how we interact with each other. Because I don't know if it's a synonym, but intimacy really does have like synonyms to like touch and interaction. So I wouldn't say that you have intimacy with a random stranger, but like when you interact with a random stranger, you smile, you hold eye contact. But that was the other one. That's the one that I forgot. Eye contact is very intimate. I understand that, yes, it's like good for like communication, but I don't always like making eye contact. I don't know you. I actually do not want to look into your eyes and see parts of your soul and see all your emotions, because eyes are so emotive. And I also don't want you to look into mine. I don't want you to know how I feel. I just met you. But eye contact in general, though, it has connections to surgery, and I just wanted to correct that because I do think that's so interesting. But then also I wanted to talk about, and now I'm realizing that you really can't see his face for real. This is Anubis. He's supposed to be a dog. Let me see. Did my screen just get lighter? Well, oh, so you gonna ban me? Ban. That's me. What was I saying? Yeah, you can sort of see it. There's an outline there. Good. Okay. I also wanted to bring Osiris because he also has connections to not blood rituals, maybe, but death rituals and burial practices in Egypt. But I actually do not know the distinguishing of these two. I don't know who is designated to do what and what else. Technically, I used to not know the difference between also the Greek or Roman version of him. But I wanted to bring up Anubis because he has the face of a dog, and I wanted to talk about One Sick Puppy because I am talking about bastardizations of intimacy, and I do think often we're living in a weird culture where everyone is a bit lovesick, and it's making us very violent towards each other. Not all of us. No, actually, I do think it's all of us. I think we're too scared to get too close, right? So we neglect each other or we don't take each other seriously. And that is a form, like, that absence of like genuineness is hurting us. And wow, all my videos are going to connect and it's going to be a bit daunting, but I'll get to it. But it was actually one of the inspirations for my video, not my video, my song that I have not released, but I'm still working on. And I have no other lyrics that I could add to it just yet. But I have a specific line where I say, love bugs drawn to passion, sex pest, blind irration. Because what's the difference between a love bug and a sex pest? I in my head canon that if I could think up a plot, I would make a comic book about this where love bugs and sex pests are the same species, and maybe they are like Cupid like creatures, and the love bugs, like, you know, they bite the person and they fall in love and then they get married and they have children and they procreate and everything is so hearts and rainbows. But if for whatever reason a love bug gets corrupted or they get heartbroken or something goes bad, like they denature, because that's one of my favorite words to say, denature or unravel. And like something about who, like implosion, explosion, like something about how they identify, like they go through a traumatic event and it irreparably damages them, irreversibly damages them, then they become a sex pest, because bug, pest, those are like synonyms. And I think that we are living in a weird. Oh wait, I was supposed to also talk about different bug, different different dogs. One sick puppy, but different bugs. Because I'm looking at Hecate, I'm like, why would Hecate be here? Hecate is associated with black dogs, and then also that's Cerberus, and he's the dog of the underworld. In general, like the underworld has connections to dogs. I've heard that apparently, if you're sick or something bad happens in your life and a dog dies near you, sometimes a dog will sacrifice their life to like give you more time. So if randomly out of nowhere your dog dies, that's like a sign that something's out to get you and they sacrifice themselves, because apparently dogs really have a connection to death or whatever. But yeah, it's something that I'm seeing ripples of, where it's just like, oh, our intimacy, like there's a lot of stuff going really wrong really fast in our culture. And it's not just also like people imposing or people trying to force or like entitled people, because it is also like a level of entitlement in general, but like it's like a passiveness, and then also act like it's passive harm, and then it's active harm, and it's like everything everything is just like this equation is all off. But technically the equation is not off if the solution, not the solution, but the end product is the situation that we're in. Pretty much every factor of our dating culture, even the people who are like, I'm being genuine, blah blah blah, but then like, no, you're not. I don't think anyone's being genuine. Well, maybe that might not be true. I think I'm just being a bit harsh, but in general, our dating culture is really bad. We are a bunch of lovesick dogs, which is a really great BL manhwa that I would love to talk about, but that's for another day. Because that one also had a scene where I was like, so I can see that it's hot, but actually, this is so disturbing, my stomach is curdling. Okay, and because I'm talking about bastardizations of intimacy, one of the most prominent well, no, it's the prominent relationship that Pluto has is with his wife Persephone, and there is a statue called the Rape of Persephone because he literally kidnapped her. And this is the one thing that I will like, oh, it's not that bad. Are you sure? I don't believe that, right? Um, it's the one thing that because I was just talking about BDSM community and how they figure out how to communicate to get what they want. And like, it's a bunch of taboos in that community, but there are consenting parties. Sometimes I think about like the girls who are into like dark romances, and I'm just like, oh yeah, like that's what Hades did with Persephone. This is a dark romance. But it is also like that. You can't do that to someone in real life. But yeah, in general, when we talk about the rape of Persephone, they're not actually talking about like that essay, like sexual assault action. It's more so it's talking about like kidnapping her to marry her. But and that's the thing. You could technically make a version of the story where he does assault her. I think I'm just in general uncomfortable with it because like in general, yeah, that's not okay. But then I also understand dark romances. I just told you that I have a favorite BL. It's not my favorite, but like there's a BL where it's like, yeah, this is interesting. This could not fly in real life. I don't know. I think I still have to do the internal work where I'm just because there was a study and I don't know the math, but they were like, yeah, a bunch of girls they will have fantasies of being assaulted. I'm like, it's not that I have fantasies about being assaulted. I have fantasies of someone being very obsessed with me. And people who tend to be very obsessive do tend to breach lines, breach into taboos. But I don't want to be assaulted. Anyways, it's called that. It's called, at the end of the day, that's what the statue is called. And it makes me sad because it's just like, why couldn't it be like, ooh, that's the one? It makes me think of Beauty and the Beast. It's literally a Beauty and the Beast story. Anyways, rape and the word reaping don't come from the same word. One is German, the other one is Latin, and one has to do with harvest, and then the other one has to do with like stealing, which that is what you're doing. Like you're stealing someone's not innocence, but like you're stealing a part of them when you assault someone like that. And this is where I wanted to bring up how the eighth house is connected to concepts of other people's possessions. I've heard Hellenistic astrologers talk about how the eighth house signifies what you'll gain if someone dies. And to some extent, you could see that death as a form of assault as well. But also, it has connections to other people's possessions, or how other people's possessions are really your possession, or how you can use other people's possessions for you. And because of that, there is a level of entitlement that I have seen. It's only one. I've seen in one Scorpio that I was like, oh, so you're just going to take my stuff. What made you think that was yours to use? There's like a level of entitlement that comes with it. And actually I'm glad that I put this word right here because that is literally the root of like actual SA, that someone feels entitled to your body, to own your body, to have your body. And I said obsessive, but then I should have also said possessive. And I think that's why it also does disturb me because I understand that when I like someone, I do tend to get vaguely obsessive and I do try to ground myself because at the end of the day, a person is a person. I need to be able to understand them in all the the nuances and or whatnot. Like, I do not want to dehumanize them by exalting them because I'm so obsessed with them, but I am vaguely possessive. Also, I don't like when you talk to other people. I don't like when you have to hang out with, when you have to do something that does not involve me. And I know that. But I've also been able to communicate that and also come to the conclusion I want you to have friends because I can't be your everything. And I feel like that's like the one thing that like maybe obsessive people, like actual abusers, I think that's why I'm uncomfortable. Technically, I have all the makings to end up being an abuser, but I don't want to be an abuser because obviously no. But I remember thinking to myself, and if I tell you don't hang out with your friends, you're supposed to ignore me. That's the only way I can think of it. Where it's just like I might express not discomfort, disapproval that you're hanging out with your friends. That's for me to deal with because also this has to do with like the motifs that I've been thinking about. Like one, like you're my everything. I forgot if I ever put that in a video. Yes, I did. I put it in a video called, what was it? It's either No Man is an Island or the one about aliens in our media. I think it's No Man in an Island, where there's something very disturbing about going, I need to be everything in your life. I need to be your friend. I need to be your lover. I need to be your parent. I need to be your pet. I need to be everything. Like you have no other context. It's just me. That is an easy way to slip into abuse. And I think because for me, it's like, I want you to be obsessed with me. I want you to think I'm your whole world. And that's just always something in the back of my head. I'm like, oh yeah, that would breed a very, very dangerous dynamic. And it's possessive. other people's possessions, being possessive, being obsessive, being entitled to someone's time, being entitled to someone's body. And also, this has to do with body counts and how, specifically, body counts when it comes to murder, one of the taboos, but then also body counts when it comes to like having sex, which I explained all of that. But yeah, possessiveness, obsessiveness, entitlement. Anyways, hit the poll. Happy full moon. I was supposed to do this last night, but then I was low energy, so I didn't. Let me go find my wallet real quick. I found my wallet. Okay. Uh, what just moved? Oh, okay. We're good, y'all. Okay, happy full moon. I was supposed to do this last night, but then I was like low energy, so I didn't. But something that I'm always thinking about are astrological polarities. I did one video, no, it wasn't recently, but I did a video slash like Substack about a polarity between Aries and Libra and how that makes me think of Adam, or the like the first man and the fallen angel. But one that I was thinking about is also the Taurus and Scorpio axis, and we're currently in the Taurus season, and we're in a Scorpio moon. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. Let me talk about it. When we think of Taurus, Taurus has connections to pleasure and happiness and beauty and life, but specifically food and consumption, right? And Scorpio, I just talked about, well, I didn't just talk about it, but I brought up how it's connected to reproductive organs. And something that I do think about is how reproductive organs are in the same place as our excretory, like our excretory, like where you piss, where you poop, that system, they are entitled in entangled with each other. So I think of that axis being that journey between the body of consuming food and then also excreting it. And then also something that I was talking about, possession. Land possession equals power, and a common motif that has to do with Scorpio is the concept of power, power over people. And I do think that also has to do with like entitlement and possession of people, and how they do tend like to be, they think that they have power over people. And I do think that there's this axis right there where it's like, oh yeah, like, well, maybe I should also say, just in case this is the first time you've seen this, I often say that axes of each other, opposing signs, are just mirrors of each other. They are like the same number, but at different expressions, like a 7 and a -7. So land equals power. Power is connected to obtaining land. Power is connected to Scorpio, and then land, because Taurus is a earth sign, is connected to, let me think, Taurus. And then also because land and wealth, Taurus has rulership or is ruled by Venus, and Venus has to do with beauty and wealth. So having wealth, power, wealth, all that. And I have more. Everything returns to the dirt. I don't know where this quote is from. I was trying to find it. There was a Bible verse from Ecclesiastics where they were like, we are made of the dirt, we return to the dirt. But this is not the exact thing that I remember hearing. The inspiration for this, oh, okay. The inspiration for this section was this video that I watched back in January where she was explaining how we are now, like, Pluto is officially now in Aquarius, and how this is going to show up for the next 17 years. I also have this link down below. But I mean, I did talk about how the eighth house has to do with other people's possessions, but it is considered a wealth placement because of like how it takes stuff. Something that I heard recently is that, oh, like if you're paying attention to Pluto or Scorpio motifs, think of it as like a loan. Yes, it's not directly yours, but it is. Like, invest in me. It's yours to use. And that has to do with the entitlement. But I also think of like how in Agatha All Along, the personification of death did end up being the Green Witch, and how green makes us think of vegetation and growth, but also like Taurus being an earth sign. And often when we depict earth signs, we think of our plants. And in this video, she says something about the decay. I might have to rewatch this one too, but she was talking about decay, and that made me think of compost. And I think a compost would be such an interesting altar, if that's what you're into, an interesting altar for Pluto, Like if you just had like a garden and then you had a section that is literally a compost bin. And then also that was the part that I remembered where she was discussing how part of this rot, like to rot to disillusionment. What if I have my notes? Disillusionment, like a not disembodiment, but like to like return back to the earth so that you can become something new, like the death and rebirth. So then you can grow into new vegetables, into new vegetation to be recycled into a new form. And oh, I was really hoping that there would be another one. There is Old English. That was what I was going to ask my mom. If it was in the Bible story, it was just something randomly that I read where there was someone who got cut open. And then in the King James version or whatever Old English I was reading, they said, and then their dirt spilt out of their body. So they got cut where their, I guess, long intestines is, and then their poop fell out of their body. So there's like old language where they talk about how poop is depicted or like talked or is spoken of as dirt, your dirt. And this is where I wanted to bring up bathrooms. There is a not YouTuber. There's a TikToker. There's a TikTok astrologer or something, spiritualist, and it's an old video, so I couldn't find it. But I remember him saying that if you want to do love spells in the bathroom, and I was like, that's so interesting. But then I realized that bathrooms is very much a very plutonial area because of, like that's where you get naked to either shower or use the restroom. You need privacy. It's something secret. And Scorpio has connections, or even Pluto has connections to like the underbelly and the things that are done in the shadows. So privacy. But then how I have a video that this one is recent where I was connecting different sub-bending types in Avatar: The Last Airbender to astrological signs because they have the same elements. And for blood bending, I said Scorpio. And I just said that how blood is intimate and Scorpio has connections to intimacy. Oh, ringing. Has connections to intimacy. But then also because blood, I said reproductive organs, the female reproductive organ will go through a menstruation, and that has to do with blood, and then it has to do with shedding. Oh man, it feels like it's all disorganized. It has to do with shedding, and Scorpio has connections to snakes, and I guess I'll go into that later because it's somewhere here. I didn't realize that I had shifted some of my slides, but it's okay. It's gonna all work out. This one was just where I wanted to bring up some potential taboos. Not taboos. They are like not potentially. They are. So I've explained defecation, like excretory system, reproductive organs, how it's connected to taboos in general, like things done in the shadows, right? And something that I do think about is like that one rumor about do not go to Dubai by yourself, girl. They will have you do weird sex stuff. And I do think the fact that scat, piss, buggery, which is just another way to say homosexuality, but it's not technically because women also have a butthole. You know what I mean? And how homosexuality is like taboo love. And this is where I'm just like, not every taboo is genuinely like a legitimate taboo that you like need to chastise someone for, but we also need to be careful when we start like being post-conventional morality, because like sometimes I do think about stuff and I'm like, that's not for me, but like I guess if you're consenting, fine, whatever. Because no, no, no. That's beautiful. But I saw a tweet recently where they were just like, I just want a forbidden love. Oh yeah, they were like, I want a forbidden love story. They were like, all homosexual love is forbidden love. So if you want to have a forbidden love story, a taboo love story, have a gay love story. But yeah, Dubai. And then also, this is a video I never watched, and like last year I found out what it was, because when I was a kid, when I was told not to do something, I wouldn't do it because I genuinely trusted the adults in my life, and I was kept safe for the most part because the adults in my life really did love me and really took care of me. So when they were like, don't look it up, don't look it up, well, it wasn't the adults, it was the kids. And I would also listen to the kids because I'm like, I actually don't want to get my cat killed. You know what I mean? My apologies. I love having peace. So I remember when Two Girls, One Cup was like going around, I think during middle school, and I was like, oh, so I'm not interested because I'm a goody two shoes. Why would I look into that? I found out what it was. Oh, right. But see how like everyone was talking about it, and I don't know if they were able to siphon off money from it from the attention economy. And that's part of the whole thing about attention economy. You can have the whole world looking at you, but if you don't have advertisements, like if you're not selling anything, you're not going to get money off of it. But attention is very valuable because attention is connected to time, and time is not a renewable resource. When it's gone, it's gone. But yeah, the executory system and all of that. So more taboos and how, oh, well, Dubai is a rich place. I think that was the part that was supposed to also bring up. Dubai has a lot of money. You will get paid if you can pull through and do it. Do you want to do all that? You let me, actually, I don't want to know. You can have it. But something that I was also thinking about is the concept of waste management. In the TV show Sopranos, his cover was that he did waste management. I was like, that's so interesting because, yeah, like waste management. But this is where I wanted to talk about the difference between Hades and the actual god of death, which is Thanatos. So Hades is not the god of the dead. Apparently, he's like the god of the underworld. He manages the underworld, so he manages waste. Like, the stuff left over, the souls. And this makes me think of water waste management in like our cities. And that water or waste management, like city management, like part of like city development, is like a job that rivals nursing. There will always be need for waste managers. There will always be someone who needs to like run a garbage truck business. There will always be someone who needs to recycle our water so that we can use, I found out recently, we only have 0.3% of usable water. All the water on this planet, only 0.3 of it is usable for all living things, not just humans, all living things. Yeah, so we need to recycle our water. So there will always be a job. And I don't know if it pays well, but I would assume it pays well because it is a city job, aka a government job. And a government job will pay really good. Right, 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 right. And this is where I wanted to talk about like the concept of accounting because I feel like management, like money management, it sounds like accounting, but I wanted to bring up accounting because back in like I guess the 80s, 70s, an innuendo for prostitution or sex workers where they are accounters. I'm an accountant or whatever. So accounting and managing money, managing waste, managing I guess clientele. Oh, I already talked about recycling water, but that's what he would do. And this is like a TikTok. I saw it on YouTube first, but then I followed them, I think on TikTok as well, where they were talking about the difference between Hades and Thanatos. And because I brought up Thanatos, I just wanted to also bring up the concept of Thanatos and his. I think they're twins, but they might have been born separately, but I will call them twins. Thanatos and Hypnosis. I don't think his name is Hypnosis, but his name has to do with Hypnos. Thanatos and Hypnosis are brothers. I call them twins. They look like twins. And Thanatos is the god of death, the titan of death. I don't think he's a god. I think he's a titan. And then this one. Where's my okay? This one is also the god of dreaming and how there's a connection between death and dreaming. I think of how a couple of times Jesus will go, they're not dead, they're just sleeping, right? I watch Sandman and they are the closest relationship, or like not relationship. They're siblings. They're siblings here too. They are close siblings. Like they interact the most, but I only watched the first season. I don't think I actually got to the second season. And I think of this one painting that I forgot who it was by. You can take a screenshot, I think, and reverse image search, hopefully. And this one is, I think, Thanatos. And then this one is Hypnos or Hypnosis. I forgot what his name was. And they look damn near the same, but one just looks a bit dead. And then the other one just looks like they're asleep. Also, because of the innuendo, we're sleeping together, having to do with sex. And I just talked about how sex has connections to, or like sex and death for whatever reason, have connections. Some scary stuff, I'm not gonna lie. It makes me think, I mean, I already talked about it, but yeah, like body count. Are you taking their life or are you just sleeping with them? What are you talking about? Now, okay. So I brought it up vaguely, but because of snakes. Snakes are known for shedding, and that's the part about the bathroom that I probably should have maybe came back to. Shedding of skin and hair. Like when you wash your hair, wash your skin, you literally shed, but then snakes don't have the skin like ours, so they like just do one shed, right? But then I also wanted to bring up the numerology because Scorpio is connected to the number 0, but because how numbers get added, 0 never shows up except for the one time. It also has connections to 9, but I'm not talking about that. But yeah, 0 to me, the closest number to the concept of infinity is 0. And I think of the Ouroboros and how that is a symbol of death and rebirth, but it is also a symbol of self harm. Apparently, snakes that do end up doing this to themselves, before they realize that what they're doing is eating themselves, they will die. And in general, a lot of animals that have to do with Scorpio have to do with death and self harm. Because I think of how, like, scorpions apparently will just kill themselves if they get stressed out or something. They will just go, like, okay, wait, how do I want? So let's imagine this is the head and this is the tail. They'll just, can you see that? Hopefully you saw that. They will just take themselves out. So I do think of how, like, there are some signs of self mutilation or self sabotaging motifs that come up about Scorpio. And this is where I think does come with the whole like taboo of it all, how someone will humiliate themselves to gain leverage. They will put themselves in compromising situations, like in Baddies USA or Baddies West or whatever Baddies show. They will put themselves in harm's way to gain some type of monetary wealth. And there is some wealth that you can there, if you know how to navigate it, you can gain a lot of money from hurting yourself. Like, people will want to watch that. People will pay to watch that. People are very, I mean, I said BDSM. I guess I didn't even really talk about it, but like there's a very sadistic nature about our voice, like sadistic nature about our media consumption, and people will pay to watch it. People will pay with their time and their energy, with their eyes and their attention. And if you put an ad in between that, you get a company to sponsor you, you can get money from it. And it's all rooted in the fact that you're willing to hurt yourself. Not rooted, no, yeah. Sometimes it will be rooted in the fact that you're okay with hurting yourself, sabotaging yourself, ruining your reputation to some extent. Because, I mean, I'm not that judgmental about sex work. Not really, yeah. But I do know that, like, people will see you in a different light, regardless of if, like, regardless if like they're legitimately anti-sex work or anti like promiscuity. At the end of the day, they're seeing a side of you that most people don't show. Like, if you go into prostitution, there are a lot of people in the whole world that have seen your private parts. I saw a joke about, if the whole world's seeing your private parts, then they're not private anymore. But like, that's not really the point. It's just more so like there is an angle that most people don't express to the whole world that you were willing to do. You let yourself get out of body and now you're fighting people on baddies. Not a lot of people will emote that way. And because you're a novelty, I'll get into that later though. But yeah, so I talked about the self-harm, but I also wanted to talk about predation just a bit because, okay, so this is the depiction. I forgot. Okay, so when I brought up the Raper Persephone, this is the actual statue of the Raper Persephone, him actually like kidnapping her. Scorpio has connections, or Pluto has connections to the concept of vulnerability. And this is something that I do think about, where it's like, it's no longer a taboo if you're desperate enough. If you need something so badly, you're willing to like just do about anything. Desperation is a vulnerability. I like, you can, I just realized you can't see the titles. Okay, this was good practice. I might have to come back another day. I'm going to do this on Twitch. This is going to be one version of this. It was good practice. Things become less of a taboo if you're desperate enough. I specifically think of cannibalism and how if you're in the middle of a famine, there is no food, guess what? All of a sudden, you're going to eat that, right? If you have no money and someone's telling you, if you open up an OnlyFans, I'll pay just about anything to give you money. It's no longer a real taboo because you need that. You need that. You need the money. You need to like survive. If you get desperate enough, someone can exploit your vulnerabilities, and that it has to do with predation. Oh, okay. So I did bring up power, predation and power, possessiveness. Oh, okay. I did bring it up. And abuse in general. It also has to do with addiction. but I forgot why. Oh, because taboos do tend to be addictive. Taboos tend to be something that you can't cut off at like a normal part. Um, Sex is not a taboo per se, but like being a sex addict, not knowing how to like oh well no, I think it's because addiction is a vulnerability. That if someone has a sex addiction, if you just keep selling them products, and I mean that seems like blaming the prostitute for them consuming the content, but like in general, like part of our economy or part of our marketing world or our marketing world, but like part of marketing is being able to hold on to a feeling, and a very powerful feeling is vulnerability or insecurity in self, and insecurity, right? Insecurity, desperation, vulnerability, these are like almost synonyms. Hi. Oh, hi. I just addiction can be a form. Yeah. And something that someone has said is just like, oh, they'll sell makeup to convince you that you'll be pretty so that you'll be less insecure, or like they'll feed on your insecurity. They'll find something that, oh, like your body doesn't look like this, your hair doesn't look like this, your face doesn't look like this, you don't have money like this, you don't have clothes like this, you don't have hair like this. They'll make you feel insecure, and that will inevitably mean that you'll be vulnerable. And addiction is a vulnerability, and if you can translate your if you can figure out a tweak, like come after someone's consumption into making it an addiction, you can make a lot of money off of that. And then I also wanted to talk about how like vulnerabilities are sensitive, private, but more so ushy gushy, I don't know, like the soft parts. And that was why I wanted to bring up also snakes. When snakes shed their skin, they are the most vulnerable. They do not want to be touched. I also heard it about cockroaches that when they molt, they are the most sensitive, so you like they will not interact with people. And it's even amongst roaches. For one house, it was one TikTok, there was a roach that tried to engage with um, one that had just molted, and they got ostracized because that was a form of assault. So it's more so just like taking advantage of someone at their weak point, and that does come at a shedding point, that can come at a transformative time. That's why I do think middle schoolers are one of our best consumers, because they're just walking insecurities. That's just like the truth. They are walking insecurities. I think that's also the same reason. Like if you, and it might be, oh, you want money from them. Sometimes it will be, oh, I want sex from them. And that's specifically why like chasers are so dangerous. Like trans people, when they're in the middle of their transitioning or their transition, or they're about to start their transition, you have to watch out for the type of people that like start coming into your life, because some of them are going to try to use the fact that you're in the middle of transforming, which is vulnerable, the middle of shedding, that which is vulnerable, to get more, or like to get something out of you. It also has to do with grooming, just like taking advantage of you. Thank you. Is the mic doing well? Okay, now this is okay. Well, there's a lag. Okay, so this is where I'm like, some of these motifs are encroaching into Saturn. And I think the concept, well, this was supposed to be a joke, but I don't know if I can make it funny. Let's make this a two man. Maybe. Maybe there won't be a lag on my actual software. So, where I think Pluto often tends to be, oh, like taking advantage of the attention economy through taboos. So it's like quick money. It's like the quickest money you can get, like quick money to sustain you, to like service you for whatever reason. Uh, Saturn is more of a placement, or Saturn is more of a concept of slow money, where you have to put in the hours and you have to put in the discipline to make money. But strangely enough, Saturn also has connections, or like Saturn motifs also has connections to addiction, because of this card, which is called the Devil. And I do think often the devil gets depicted as death, and they almost seem like synonyms in our culture, but they're not. And I also wanted to bring up the devil because I think this one specifically is known as Balslava, Bals, whatever. And this one doesn't have it, but there are depictions where he has a face here and then a face in his, reproductive area. And I don't, know why it makes me think of menstruation, but I've also heard some things of like, oh yeah, like they designed the devil after the woman's reproductive system. And I think that's a happy little happenstance. But yeah, it makes me think of that, and I just think that's so interesting that they do tend to be tied, and especially since Saturn also has to do with like darkness, not darkness, but like the color black. At least I've seen it be tied to the color black, and I was like, that's so interesting because I thought that would be Scorpio. But yeah, there is this thing about like discipline and putting the hours to succeed, and how it will be for the long haul that you don't see specifically for Pluto. And I think that's the main differentiating between Saturn and Pluto, this whole concept of putting in the hours to make it. And then also because cannibalism, Saturn, also known as Kronos, he ate his babies. And because he did that, I will always bring up cannibalism. But then also, it has connections to enslavement or. Oh, wait, let me finish my thought and then I'll read. It has connections to enslavement, and I do think in general, like capitalism and how it's like a form of enslavement, low key, and how it's like a consumption of bodies to like there's a machine and its fuels are the working class, and they literally burn out. They burn through working class people. They literally cannibalize it like a consuming fire. And Saturn also has connections to, well, I said bodies, like enslavement. What is more valuable than, oh, I guess I changed it. There, in between here was the phrase bodies and time. Chronos, also the Chronos is literally directly connected to like chronology, like the phrase chronology, which has to do with time. And time is a very valuable asset or a very valuable resource that once it burns through, you will never have that again. But I would say that I think what is more valuable than time is a human soul. And because technically death has to do with the management of the afterlife, or like managing the afterlife, they manage human souls. That is more valuable. Like bodies are also valuable, but like it's more so the person that literally lives in the body that is more valuable. I think it's both, of course, but I think there's something very special about Hades, the place and the person literally manages human souls. And I did bring up water management or water waste management, and we recycle. Technically, I don't think like the Greeks believed in reincarnation, but technically, I would say then that would mean Hades was how do I want to say? Hades was responsible for the recycling of souls so that certain souls would come back up, and who would get to come back up, and that would be a lot of energy. And I do think that's like sort of kind of the point where this is now back to Pluto, where it is like a get rich quick scheme, but the novelty will run out. Like attention people's we don't have the same attention span as we used to, but also like there's always something new that's going to take catch our attention. When you use taboos to get people's attention, to get money, to experience, to monetize over that, it is, and then you keep doing the taboo and the taboo, like eventually it just becomes a mundane thing. Like the consistent stimuli will build up a level of tolerance, so it's like you have to either go grander and grander and grander, but then you will hit a wall or you'll hit something where you're like, I actually cannot do that. That would actually destroy me, or that would actually cross my personal boundary. Like I would lose myself completely if I went cross that boundary. And because it is a novelty and it's like literally seconds of fame or seconds of it's like a second, like it's a short amount of time that you have, you will have to put in the hours eventually to be able to sustain it. Like if you want to sustain that moment and like actually monetize it, actually multiply it. And I do think that's like the one thing like the Kardashians and Paris Hilton did very well, was that they took that moment and they were able to put in time after it to actually sustain it and multiply it and make it last for as long it is as it is last. Because the truth is like how quickly you got it is how quickly you can lose it, or you will lose it. But that's if you don't understand that that would have to be a two-man situation. Like you would have to figure out like you have to put in the hours to keep this sustained. But just the camera movement and it will be perfect. Okay. We just learned that not how that's not how the uterus actually looks. It's That's how a removed and cut up uterus looks. Exactly. I saw the one inside the body. It literally just it's three blobs. It's the uterus and then the two eggs. I was like, this is so cute. I'm actually obsessed with that. But yeah, I think that's it. How do I go back? I don't want to end. I want to go back to my okay. So I've definitely learned or practiced this. Uh, 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 Ooh, my laptop made noise. Did you hear that? Yeah. So this is me discussing Pluto and how you can make money quickly, or how there is something. Oh, like also, I should have said that dirty money, filthy money, like how money. There is a phrase that I was supposed to use. Now that I'm thinking, there's always something that I'm always missing to add. Thank you. I'm going to go live later on today on Twitch because I have some videos that I brought up that I'm like, oh, I would love to like. I took some notes actually last night. Not here. I took some notes last night about one of the videos and I was like, okay, so there's definitely something that I'm picking up on and I need to work on it. And then I think you like it's specifically the one Alexander Blair. I wrote notes. And she had some writing prompts that I actually do want to do because I do think it would really help me out. You heard the bing sound. I don't know what that was. Oopsies. But yeah, that was it. That this is my Pluto video. Okay, it was pretty much an hour. I did this in an hour. Thank you so much for watching. If you are watching the rewatch, I also don't think I checked if it was going to come out publicly or unlisted. Oopsies. This has been Wakasa VV. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, bell notification, but then also comment. What do you think? What are some taboos or what are some social mores that you have noticed that you're like, well, I don't think that's a really like my personal moral, but like, or how do I want to say, are there some taboos that you're like, well, I don't actually see it as a taboo or a bad thing. And because you guys see it as a taboo or a bad thing, I might as well make money off of that. For me, I'm going to be honest, I think mine is astrology because technically this is considered witchcraft. But I'm like, I'm not a witch. But I guess I shouldn't be talking about this. But like, it's right there in my face. I'm not supposed to bring it up. I don't know. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will see y'all next time. Bye.